Alex West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags and we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Good morning, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. How you doing, everybody? Good to see you, and we know that this is Wednesday, July 22nd. We know we're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill. And we know it's a hot, sultry summer day. I hope you're having a good one, or will have a good one, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. Thank you for joining us here on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, Talker TV. President Obama yesterday making his 7th appearance on the show with Stewart. It was a farewell parting gift from the president to Jon Stewart, who will be retiring from that chair where he's done such an incredible job for so long. He'll be retiring within a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, I got to tell you, people are learning, don't mess with Donald Trump. Yeah, Lindsey Graham learned that the hard way. After he called Donald Trump a jackass, Donald Trump turned around and said, well, Lindsey Graham is an idiot. And he revealed to the world that Lindsey Graham had called him a couple of years ago and begged for his help to see if he could get Lindsey, if Donald Trump could get Lindsey on Fox and Friends in the morning more often, because he always saw Donald Trump on that show. He wanted to be on that show too, and he gave Donald Trump a little memo with his telephone number, private cell phone number, which of course Donald Trump gave to the world yesterday. And yes, it was Lindsey Graham's cell phone number. Don't mess with Trump. There are more children in poverty than we ever imagined. It is worse than you think, and we're talking about here in the United States, friends, not in the deepest part of Africa. And John Kasich, governor of Ohio, jumping into the Republican primary yesterday, becoming the 16th Republican to do so. His number one goal is to get on stage for the big debate, the first debate on August 6th in his home state of Ohio. That's it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. That and more. Good to have you with us today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent? Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude.
Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Shoot your hands. Help me. Shoot your hands. Back away.
Gentlemen, we have a tentacle. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place.
Okay.
So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team.
Uh-huh.
So they regenerated the idea of
I see.
activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean, a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be facing. What's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
President Obama on The Daily Show 7 times. Big appearance last night with Jon Stewart. I'll take him once. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Here we go. Wednesday, July 22nd. So good to see you today. It is the Bill Press Show, and you are part of it. And we're so happy that you are. Thank you for joining us. Good to be with you this Wednesday morning, Wednesday, July 22. We are there with you everywhere, wherever you happen to be in this wonderful country of ours. We're here in our nation's capital, but reaching out to you in every corner of the United States of America on your local progressive talk radio station and on the 2 great radio apps, iHeartRadio and TuneIn. Also looking at you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on a video stream, Talker TV. So good to hear from you and see you this morning. And we look forward to actually getting you as part of the show and having you join the conversation. As always, in our little 3-hour roundup of the news of the day, you know how to do it. Give us a call, 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And, everybody's asking, well, gosh, when President Obama was playing golf with those 3 members of Congress over the weekend, did they talk about Iran at all? Was that part of his hustling and lobbying to get Democrats to vote for the Iran deal? It's only here on the Bill Press Show that you will find out, because we have one of his golf partners, Congressman John Yarmuth, joining us a little bit later. You bet we're going to grill the good congressman about that golf game and how good a golfer is Barack Obama.
I want to know.
It's a good question.
I do too. Yeah, we've been trying to get his caddy on, and but we all know caddies don't talk.
No, they don't. They better not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but congressmen do. Hey, how about it? Team Press here this morning.
This might be the last time John Yarmuth plays golf if you really grill him.
Or the last time he does the show.
Yeah, right. He's going to have to give one of us out.
Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy, hello.
Hey. Here we are.
Here we are on a Wednesday. Can you believe it? Hot summer Wednesday. Jamie Benson, the heat doesn't stop him. He's there to take your calls and take the heat from you at 866-55-PRESS. And yes, Monty Kanzler here as our videographer, sitting in for the Paris, our Parisian.
Yeah.
Cyprian Bolding. Yeah. Bonjour, Sip. Bonjour, Sip. We know he's watching.
I can't wait to see how much he's changed when he comes back.
I want to see how good his French is.
Come back in the beret and smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking French. There you go. Right. Yeah, as we mentioned, President Obama, he was on the Daily Show again last night, number 7, and he's a little peeved because he still has a year and a half to go, and Jon Stewart only has less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I can't believe that you're leaving before me. In fact, I'm issuing a new executive order that Jon Stewart cannot leave the show.
There you go. Certainly the crowd likes that indeed. Well, we got a lot coming. David Jackson, it's Wednesday. David Jackson will be here from the White House, USA Today. Of course, reporters in from Bloomberg, from Politico, from the Center for American Progress, and, of course, as I mentioned, Congressman John Yarmuth. And the Trump machine continues to roll down the road, taking no prisoners and leaving nobody standing behind. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We begin with some sad news as the National Zoo announced yesterday that a 12-year-old cheetah has died at one of its sister campuses. The cheetah, named Shambay, passed away July 18th at the Conservation Biology Institute. This is in Front Royal, Virginia. It's an offshoot of the National Zoo. An X-ray back in February showed that Shambay had a tumor in his abdomen, and because of the advanced age, the vets chose not to perform surgery. So we say farewell to Shambay the cheetah at the National Zoo.
Is that a long life for a cheetah?
You know, it's
12 years?
12 years? I don't know if
I don't think so.
Cat years work the same way as dog years. But they did say that because...
I'll have to ask JJ.
Ask JJ the cat. They did say that he was an older cat, which is why they didn't do the surgery. So, I don't know. That's a good question. Dad bod. It's the summer of dad bod. Everyone loves a dad bod, right? No more cut, no more six packs. They want a beer belly and all of that. But science now shows us that the dad bod is a real thing. Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine, get this study, they tracked more than 10,000 men over a 20-year period. And it turns out that men who become fathers experience weight gain and an increase in body mass index compared to those who did not become fathers, who actually lost weight over the same time period. So there you have it. Kids make us fat.
So don't go to the gym. Enjoy your dad bod.
That's right. Enjoy it. Just embrace the dad bod.
Embrace
the dad bod. Bill, I know you consider yourself an animal lover. I don't think. I am. I don't think that you can.
Except those that walk on 2 feet.
There is that. I don't know if you're willing to go this far. This is a man by the name of Stan Penniman. He is in Florida. He was a part of a group that was observing some sea turtle eggs that were hatching, and a very drunk man came by and began disrupting the people that were sort of protecting the hatchery, and the guy started to act like he was going to go over and start messing with sea turtle eggs, this drunk guy. So Stan Penniman, 73 years old, shoved this drunk man. The drunk man then shoved Stan on the ground and shot in the general direction of the turtles, but Stan blocked the turtles and took a bullet wound to the butt.
Oh my gosh.
Right in the ass. He was trying to protect these sea turtles.
Good for him.
And he protected the turtles.
Good for him.
He blocked the bullet with his buns.
I hope something happened to that other guy.
He was arrested, and he has several charges, including public drunkenness, public intoxication. But
a drunk guy running around with a gun?
Yeah, and by the way...
It is Florida, after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. I'm a big animal lover. I'm not sure if I'm going to get shot in the butt to save an animal.
A turtle.
A turtle.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how many times a day I get tweets from my sister, who is very upset by Donald Trump and watching on television the latest thing that he's saying. Like yesterday, oh my God, he's giving a news conference. I can't believe it, all the stuff he's saying. And my advice is, turn off your TV, right? Because the fact of it is, the Trump machine just keeps rolling on and on and on. It is dominating the news, as it is again this morning. And we know why, of course. I mean, he is the only presidential candidate with a cologne named after him, after all.
That's right.
I mean, not even Carly Fiorina has her own cologne, right? I mean, Donald Trump has the Donald. Are you wearing Donald today? Yeah, right. But in fact, I don't know whether you've heard, they have, there's no longer a Republican primary for 2016. They have renamed the Republican primary the Trump Show, because that's all it is. If you look at the media coverage, and I heard yesterday some astounding figure, I forget now, it's something like 60-some% of all the media coverage about the Republican primary in the last week has been about Donald Trump. He is getting more coverage, more attention than all the other candidates combined. I mean, including United States senators like Marco Rubio and Rand Paul, who, right? Including other former governors like Jeb Bush and Bobby Jindal, and yesterday, John Kasich, and Jim Gilmore. It's all the attention is going to Donald Trump. It's all about him. And by the way, that's right. It is all about him, not about any of the issues. They're not talking issues. Donald Trump's not talking issues. It's all about him and how rich he is and how famous he is. And by the way, it's working. It's working. We told you yesterday in the latest poll, Washington Post, ABC poll, nationwide, Donald Trump in double-digit lead over Jeb Bush. He's got 24%, Jeb Bush 13%, and Marco Rubio 13%, and Jeb Bush 12%. But then when that poll came out, everybody was saying, well, that poll was taken just before the John McCain comments, right? Only the last day of that poll did people know about the John McCain comments. And so, of course, after they take, the next poll will show that after sliming John McCain and claiming he was no war hero and calling him a loser, then, of course, Donald Trump would plummet in the polls. I told you yesterday that was not going to happen. Guess what? It didn't happen. I hate to say I told you so. There's a poll out this morning. Let me grab it here because it's a poll that I had never heard of before. Nationwide poll, though. It is the Morning Consult poll. Apparently has a good reputation. Republican poll. And in that, with this latest one, taken after the John McCain comments, Donald Trump still leads the field. 22% of the vote to Jeb Bush, 15%, and Scott Walker in this poll in third place with 12%. So whatever he says about John McCain didn't have any impact on the polls. And Donald Trump told us why yesterday. He said, here are the people that I am appealing to, what he calls the new silent majority.
There's a silent majority out there. We're tired of being pushed around, kicked around, and acting and being led by stupid people. They're stupid people.
Yeah, he's calling all the politicians stupid people.
Stupid people.
I'm running against those stupid people. I'm the only one who's not one of them. And you can see, look, I'm not supporting him. I'm just saying you can see where his appeal is.
Yeah.
But he is appealing. What he has done, he has unmasked the Republican Party for what it really is, an elitist party that doesn't care about the middle class. That really is a party, as Bernie Sanders, of the millionaires and the billionaires, with a strong racist tinge and intolerant tinge. That's who they are, and they're the silent majority, and they are Donald Trump's people. But I'll tell you one thing. The other thing we've learned is you don't mess with Trump. Lindsey Graham learned that the hard way. And by the way, look forward to hearing from you about the latest on the Donald, 866-55-PRESS, and whether you think Republicans, how they should handle him, and whether or not he might run as an independent, as a third-party candidate, which he's talking about, and what that would do to the Republican Party, 866-55-PRESS. Back to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham made the mistake yesterday of calling Donald Trump a jackass. The one thing people ought to learn about Donald Trump, you don't strike out at him unless you are ready.
You got to be ready to go to war.
Get back, right? John McCain said his people were crazies, and Donald Trump called him a loser and said he wasn't really a war hero. Lindsey Graham yesterday called Donald Trump a jackass, and Donald Trump in South Carolina responds.
But today I got called a jackass by this guy. And then I said to myself, hey, Didn't this guy call me like 4 years ago? Yes. He called me 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Lindsey Graham. I didn't even know who he was. He goes, Mr. Trump, this is Senator Lindsey Graham. I wonder if it would be possible for you to call Fox. He's like begging me to help him with Fox and Friends. Yeah. So I say, okay, and I'll mention your name. He said, could you mention my name? I said, yes, I'll mention. And he gave me his number, and I found the card.
He found the card. What's on the card?
He gave me his number, and I found the card. I wrote the number down. I don't know if it's the right number. Let's try it. 202.
And then he goes on to give the rest of the number, which everybody is blanking now. But the point is, well, here, let's say, try it. He says he's not sure it's still good.
I don't know. Maybe it's, it's 3-4 years ago, so maybe it's an old number. So, I don't know. Give it a shot.
And he reads the number out of this news conference. Everybody immediately jumped to call the number. Politico calls the number, and guess what? Lindsey Graham answers his cell phone.
Yeah.
It was Lindsey Graham's cell phone number. I saw Perry Bacon, a friend of ours from The Root, not The Root, over that little NBC offshoot. Anyhow, we've had Perry in the studio. He said, I'm a journalist. I immediately called it.
Yeah.
And he got Lindsey Graham's phone? Voicemail.
Yeah.
Should we try it?
We should give it a shot after the break. Yeah. Because we have the number, right?
Yeah, we got the number.
Yeah, we can give it. We can call it.
We'll call it ourselves. Yeah. And meanwhile, you can call us at 866-55-PRESS. I guess I want to hear you. What do you think about latest? Do you think it was fair to give out Lindsey Graham's number? By the way, I do.
Yeah.
You know what? If Lindsey Graham calls me a jackass, I'd give out his cell phone number. I'd prove what a jackass I am. Don't mess with Trump. What about the latest about the Trump show and third-party candidate? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. the dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, the Trump show rolls on. Case in point, I got the front page of Politico up on my big screen here this morning. This is the front page of Politico, if you will, top of the fold, the online equivalent of top of the fold. And let me just read you the headlines. Will Trump debate be the Trump show? The man behind Trump's run. Republican candidates get trumped. Donald Trump gives out Lindsey Graham's cell phone number.
Dude.
The four of the top, 6 stories on Politico are all about Donald Trump. It's the same way everywhere. Ricky's in Douglasville, Georgia. Ricky, what do you say?
What's up, Bill?
How you doing?
Trump is saying people are tired of politically correct. These politicians, both sides, say one thing, do another once they're elected. He's saying what people, if you don't like it, don't vote for me. But this is the way I see it. I mean, and as far as John McCain, I'm a retired Air Force officer, 22 years. I didn't have a problem with what he said. John McCain should be honored. He was a POW. That he sacrificed that for his country. That's great. That don't make him a hero. The hero was the guy that got the Congressional Medal of Honor posthumously by the president because he fell on a grenade and saved it. That's a hero.
Yeah. Well, I agree the guy that got the Medal of Honor is a hero, but I would call John McCain a hero too. My point about John McCain is, and I think you're making it too, Ricky, is that he's fair game like any other politician. And again, it was okay when they slimed John Kerry, but, not okay when Donald Trump criticizes John McCain. Well, too bad. John McCain's no sacred cow, no sacred bull either. Hey, we still have to call Lindsey Graham. Let's get that phone number. We'll do it when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer
Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone, and there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, we roll along here on a Wednesday, July 22nd. Live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Those great men and women of the Teamsters Union. Under President Jim Hoffa, we all live better because of their good work, and you can find out more about their work at teamster.org. And here we're talking, by the way, at the top of the next hour, very, very interesting. It is reported today that there are now 3 million more children living in poverty than there were just 5 or 6 years ago. Poverty rate among American children soaring. You wouldn't think about that. We're going to find out about that from the Vice President of the Center for American Progress in the next hour. In our next segment, David Jackson from USA Today covers the White House for USA Today. Will be joining us as well. Right now, we're talking about the Trump phenomenon, the Trump show, and particularly Donald Trump yesterday. Going after Lindsey Graham because Lindsey Graham called him a jackass, and Donald Trump also threatening to run as a third-party candidate if Republicans do, in fact, disown him, or if he can't make it in the Republican primary. What do you think about that? 866-55-PRESS. Remember, Ross Perot Donald Trump, who got 19% against George H.W. Bush and basically elected Bill Clinton.
Here's the thing that people don't realize about Donald Trump is because he's been so famous and so rich for so long, he has fielded so many requests from politicians over the years. And Trump,
they have all called him for money.
Yeah, for favors, for money, for appearances. And Trump is notorious for keeping everything. He just holds on to everything. And if anybody throws something at him, he has ammunition that he's just sitting on.
Finding that Lindsey Graham note was a brilliant stroke. Yeah, it really was.
Huge.
Up in Boston, Massachusetts. Hey, Tom, what's going on? How are you?
I'm well, Bill. How you doing, sir?
We're doing good. Yeah, what do you think of the Trump machine?
Well, unbelievable. But first of all, I just recently started watching your program, and I just want to tell you that you and your staff are fantastic.
Oh, my God.
My man.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
God bless you
All right.
for the work that you people do over there.
Boston strong. We're with you.
There you go, Tom.
Yes. My question is now, I've heard before that the White House is up for sale, and it usually goes to the highest bidder. Now, with Trump being so rich, does that put him ahead of the pack?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It means he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to have his own sugar daddy. Well, first of all, he is ahead of the pack. Let's face it. He's the front runner in every poll we've seen for the last 10 days. And one of the reasons is because he is self-funded. And Tom, that's one of the reasons why Republicans have to worry about his running as a third-party candidate. The last person who did it again was Ross Perot. We remember that.
Yes.
He got 19% of the vote. You know, it takes a lot of money to fund your own campaign, and nobody's had the money since Ross Perot until Donald Trump, right?
Right.
So I'll tell you, I don't know whether he goes all the way, but one thing is he's not going to run out of money.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. That
Isn't it?
White House is up for sale. Unbelievable.
I'll tell you one thing, Tom. Relax about this. He will never be, heard it here first, he will never be president of the United States.
No.
He's not going to get enough votes. But you know, I keep getting distracted here, and thank you for all the calls. But Donald Trump gave out Lindsey Graham.
We've got the number.
We're
going to make a call over here and see if we can get him.
Call it? Can you pull it up?
Come on.
Let's just call it.
Let's just call it. Let's go. Let's go for right. Okay, there we go. Yeah. At least we'll call, right? There we go.
Thanks to Donald Trump for this.
If you know how to read tones, you can.
You might figure this out.
You can figure that number out, right? Here we go. Let's see.
It's early though.
Yeah.
You've reached the cell phone of U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina.
Damn.
Oh, we got voicemail.
Sorry, I can't take your phone right now, but if you've been paying attention, you've probably seen I've had myself a little bit of phone trouble here recently. I don't think we need to get into the details of that, but I did want to help y'all out if y'all did want to get in touch with me while I'm having this downtime. If you were calling my cell phone number to ask about a campaign contribution or help me out, it's a very easy way you could do it. Just call my office, or you could always just call the office of Charles and David Koch. They're always more than willing to help out with the money stuff around here.
Oh, you knew that.
If you were calling to tap into my vast knowledge of military strategy, you could always just call the house of my adoptive daddy, John McCain. Man is a war hero, after all. If you were looking to get some of this good old Southern loving and be one of my rotating first ladies, you can always just shoot me an email. That's DIXIENORMOUS@gmail.com. That's right. Just send me an email at dixienormus@gmail.com. I am from the great state of South Carolina, after all. I'd like to apologize for having to take my phone offline for a little while, but I promise I'll be back up soon, and I hope to hear from y'all again.
There he goes. There he goes. There he goes.
I expect him to say, "We'll keep the lights on." We'll keep the lights on for you.
Right. Oh, man.
Well, it works.
It works.
It's his phone number.
It actually works.
Yeah. But you see how Lindsey, he's taking advantage of this right now, right? To turn it into a plug for money.
Money. Plug
for money. And
any
for,
good politician.
And a plug for some Southern lovin'.
Dixie.
I'm not sure I want any Southern loving with Lindsey Graham.
I don't think so.
It's too bad we didn't try last night because Lindsey Graham was with Senator Kelly Ayotte here in D.C. watching Minions, the movie with her kids, and so the kids got a chance to answer the phone last night.
He went to go see Minions with somebody else's kids, huh? It's like that weird Uncle Lindsay.
Rent a kid.
Yeah, right?
Back to the third party. Well, I'll tell you, that Lindsey Graham, I can't believe that voice. I'm glad we called it.
Yeah.
Now we know.
Thanks to Donald Trump.
Thanks to Donald Trump, and now we know.
Save that number.
I got to say, Lindsey Graham has a nice voice.
He does have a nice voice, doesn't he? But save that number because we'll keep calling it.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
we'll try it again.
Maybe we won't get voicemail. But he when you're given a lemon, make lemonade, right? He's turned that, getting all those calls into plug for his campaign in various ways. Good for him.
Smart. This is really, this gets back to the point I was making earlier. If anybody else wants to step up to the plate and challenge Donald Trump.
And attack Donald Trump? No.
He's making it very, very clear that you need to be ready for a full-blown war. Lindsey Graham called him a jackass. Donald Trump stepped that up by so many more levels. Have you ever heard of a politician giving another one's cell phone number for people to call and harass?
No, it's just you don't do that, right? But here's what's going on. There's another phenomenon here we have to admit. Is, as we said earlier, Donald Trump is, sucking up all the oxygen in the room. No doubt about it, right? Yeah. He's getting probably 70, 75% of all the media coverage, more than all the other 15 combined, as I mentioned earlier. And the only other ones who are getting any attention are the ones who are attacking Donald Trump. That's what Lindsey Graham did yesterday. He knew what he was doing. He was punching up. That's what they call it. Punching up, right? It's an old trick. If somebody's bigger and better than you, you punch up to try to get them to respond. Lindsey Graham is doing it. Rick Perry is doing it. The only of the other candidates that anybody's talking about at all, right? Lindsey Graham, do you think he'd be getting any media attention? He'd be down there with Bobby Jindal and Jim Gilmore, right? Except he attacked Donald Trump, and Donald Trump attacked him back. Rick Perry, the same thing, coming out saying that Donald Trump ought to apologize and get out of the field. So he went after Donald Trump, went after Rick Perry. That's what they're doing, right? And it is it is working for them in the sense that that's the only way they're getting any attention. Look, I know this tactic because I've used it. I used to attack when I first started doing talk radio in L.A. on the same station with Rush Limbaugh. I used to attack Rush Limbaugh, right?
That's what you want to do.
In my show, because I followed him, and then Rush would inevitably respond. Yeah. In fact, he used to call me an entertainer. He called me an entertainer. You talk about the pot calling the kettle black, right? And same thing with Bill O'Reilly. When we first started this show, we used to punch up at Bill O'Reilly, and then Bill O'Reilly would call him, or somebody would say something somehow, and then Bill O'Reilly would say something snarky about me. Yeah. So it's an old tactic. Lindsey Graham's using it, and Rick Perry's using it.
Smart.
Yeah. And the Trump show rolls on. Well, let's break from the Trump show to talk to David Jackson about the Obama show down at the White House, coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, 13 minutes before the top of the hour, last time we talked to David Jackson, he still had a hangover from having to get up so early in order to be at the White House at 5 a.m. for the president's announcement about the Iran deal. Do you think David's recovered yet?
I hope so.
What do you say? David Jackson, how are you?
I don't know. I'm not getting any younger, you know.
Yeah. Are you back in the groove here?
More or less, except with the president going to Africa later this week. The groove is a little worn down.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Last night on The Daily Show, he and Jon Stewart have a thing going, don't they? Huh?
They certainly do. That was not exactly a hard-hitting interview, but under the circumstances, I wasn't surprised. So.
And it's the seventh time? Is that read somewhere?
Seventh time for Obama, third as president. He did fourth gigs when he was a senator senator from Illinois.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. I guess the funniest line was, "I can't believe you're leaving before I am."
Yes, and an executive order requiring Jon Stewart to remain at the Daily Show, but Stewart said it's a states' rights issue, and he's not going to follow it.
And otherwise, a lot of talk about Iran. He talks about Iran, David, everywhere he goes now, right?
Yes, and he's really putting on a full-court press, even to the point where he had golf with 3 members of Congress over the weekend, which is a little surprising. And
I just let me interrupt you there.
I just don't know. Do you really think they're worried about not getting enough congressional votes to get this thing through?
Well, I think they might be, but I'm glad you joined me in trying to get to the bottom of Golfgate here. That's why I asked that question.
Oh, that's right, you did. Yeah. Well, it was. I mean, clearly it had something to do with wanting to lobby these guys.
Well, we have John Yarmuth on the show a little bit later, so we're going to try to get to the bottom of that, David, and find out whether or not. The White House, he says, number one, that this was planned a long time ago. It has nothing to do with Iran, and that they didn't even talk about Iran. Right? Yeah.
The first two, I might give him the benefit of the doubt on the first two, but the third one I find very hard to believe, especially given those three, because there are questions about all three of them. All three of them have expressed questions about the Iran deal, so it'd be shocking if it didn't come out in some form.
But I think clearly it seems to me what they don't want is a lopsided, all Republicans against it and just Democrats for it.
Right. I guess so.
That's what they might get, but they'd rather not. Obviously.
Right. Yeah, I guess they want. I think they want a majority vote in the Senate and the House on a veto override situation. But I mean, it really doesn't matter. The opponents are going to still have to muster a two-thirds vote in at least one of the chambers to defeat the treaty. I think that's going to be very difficult to do.
Yeah. I don't think they pull that off. But certainly the president is. I mean, he's personally involved in this.
Right.
Look at our news conference last week.
Oh, very aggressively involved, and I bet he's making tons of calls and reaching out to people. It's one of the most aggressive lobbying efforts I've seen them do.
You know, I don't know whether we talked to you since that news conference. Were you surprised when he went after Bill Cosby?
Yes, a little bit. I was. I just thought he would kind of defer it. I knew they felt like they didn't have the legal authority to pull that medal, so that part didn't surprise me. When he went on and said that, if you give someone drugs and have sex with them against their will, that's rape. I was a little bit surprised he kind of had that comment on the case.
Well, it reminded me, and she was sitting there over to the side, it reminded me right away of his comments about the professor's name I'm blanking up at Harvard when Henry Louis Gates. And I saw some other people made the same reference in articles they wrote about it because, it sort of was maybe whether or not he was waiting for the question, but he did pause a little bit before. I think he was thinking, should I go there or not?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. I think he really had one last thought that should I do this or not, and went ahead and decided to pledge it. I do think they anticipated the question because there have been a lot of news stories about the request to pull the medal for Bill Cosby, so he was ready for it. It was just a question of how far he wanted to go, and when he was finally hit with the question, he decided to go for it.
Just curiously, it just crossed my mind. How much preparation and how intense preparation do they do for these news conferences?
Oh, very intense for ones that are planned. Now, this one was kind of called the last minute, so he probably didn't prepare for this one as much as he has for others. And in this one, he obviously wanted to sell the Iran deal. Even when someone asked him, you could ask him about the man in the moon, and he would still talk about the Iran deal. He was determined. So it was more like a speech with us present, but hours, days. Sometimes spending.
Do they really? So they think about all the questions that might possibly come up, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And then does he rehearse answers, or just kind of know what questions?
I don't think it's a formal rehearsal like there is for the State of the Union. I think they just kind of talk through what he wants to say about each issue if it comes up.
Now you mentioned, I think it's tomorrow evening. He leaves for Africa. What is this trip all about? What's he hope to gain? Where's he going?
He's going to Kenya first and then there's a meeting there of entrepreneurs in Nairobi, and that's the main purpose of the trip, is to develop the African economy, and then he's going to go over to Ethiopia, basically for the same thing. It's a trip to try to promote the African economy. There's a lot of rumors that he might want to go to his ancestral village in Kenya, but I think that's highly unlikely, in large part because the Secret Service has grave concerns about the security on this trip.
Because?
It's not a safe, Kenya, there's a lot of questions about the safety, both in Kenya and in Ethiopia, particularly Kenya. Just a lot of questions about the safety there, about the security situation there. We've had the terrorist attacks there, and I know there's deep concern.
Is family going with him this time?
No, I don't think so.
Right. So obviously maybe might be more likely to go to his ancestral home or village if his daughters were along or something.
I think so too. I think that's kind of a post-presidency kind of a thing because, for him in order to do that. And of course, he did it when he was a senator, so he's been there before. But to do it as president with all the intended security concerns, I'd just be very, very surprised. And there's not a lot of flexibility in the schedule either because he's leaving Thursday night and he's coming back Tuesday. So, two countries far apart on the African continent. That's not a lot of time there.
No, I was talking to a couple of the camera people who are going to be pooling for that, right? And they were saying too. I mean, this is an awful long distance. A short trip for an awful long distance, I guess.
Well, it had this meeting of U.S. African entrepreneurs in Washington a year ago, and the president pledged to have the return meeting in Nairobi, and that's why he's going for this gig here on the weekend.
Got it. And are you traveling?
No. I'm hoping to do trying to do some politics, man. While I got to keep up with Donald Trump.
Well, I'll see you on the road somewhere, maybe. Huh?
Hopefully, yeah.
Boy, he's sucking up all the oxygen. That's for sure.
It is amazing. I haven't seen since Perot in '92. I mean, the parallels to me are striking.
That's right, and that's where you might see Perot, in fact, next. And I'll see you next at the briefing today, 1:00, isn't it?
Great. Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks so much.
Phil.
David Jackson covers the White House for USA Today, usatoday.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Ben Schreckinger from Politico, top of the next hour.
Bill, Joe Biden showed up earlier this week with the president. He had a dark, penny-sized contusion just below his lower lip. People were wondering what happened to Joe Biden. It turns out he got a bruise from playing with his German Shepherd named Champ. He was roughhousing with the dog. The dog got a little enthusiastic.
Oh, no.
Bumped
really?
at his face and nailed him. Got him right below the lip. He's fine. He's not going to miss any events or anything like that. But, you know, they say if you need a friend in Washington, get a dog. Even his friend turned on him.
I thought Joe was the champ. Yeah, I guess Joe has the champ. All right. Talk politics with Ben Schreckinger
next. This is the Bill Press Show.
Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got your cell phone handy? You can reach out and call Lindsey Graham. Yeah. Just ask Donald Trump for his number. He'll give it to you. What do you say? Hello, everybody. It gets stranger and stranger every day. Wednesday, July 22nd. Here it is, The Bill Press Show. Good to see you today, and thank you for jumping on board as we leave Washington to head out from Washington, D.C. in our studio here on Capitol Hill, reaching out to you all across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station, on the two great radio apps. Both of them are free. Download them, iHeartRadio or TuneIn. Reaching out to you also on Free Speech TV. You can find us on DirecTV, of course, and the Dish Network, and then also worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR-TV. I got to tell you, you can't escape us. We are there with you on the radio, on TV, worldwide, nationwide, and we look forward to hearing from you at 866-55-PRESS. Politics occupying most of the news of the day. Ben Schreckinger is a political reporter, one of the top for Politico. Has been all over the country with the candidates, most of them on the Republican side, and he joins us in the studio this morning. Hello, Ben. It's nice that you're in town and able to join us.
Hey, Bill. It's nice to be in town, and thanks for letting me join you.
I mean, what we got? We're up to 16 now. We're not counting Jim Gilmore quite yet, I guess. Huh?
That's right. He'll be lucky number 17 when he jumps in, and maybe we'll have time to say a couple sentences about him then.
Yeah. Is that it? Is that all we're going to get? Is just
That's
17?
a good question. Who else is out there?
I did hear a rumor about one other person now, and I'm blanking on who it was.
Bob Ehrlich, former IRS Commissioner Mark Everson. I don't know what the status of either of those guys is. I'm not sure that even journalists at this point have room in their head for those guys.
Right. Bob Ehrlich, a former governor.
Yeah.
So why not? Yeah, here we go.
This is the why not election. Hey, why not?
Yeah, right.
I can run.
I guess if I were ever going to run, now would be the time.
Why
right?
not?
Yeah, why not? Right. You join our team here this morning, led by Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello,
guys.
Hey, good morning.
Jamie, where is he there? Jamie Benson. Well,
Yeah,
he's
there.
in-house somewhere. Jamie Benson will take your calls, ready to take your calls.
He's still trying to call Lindsey Graham.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Right.
we're trying to get through to that number.
866-55-PRESS, and with Cyprian Bolding in Paris, Monty Chancellor. Yes, Cyprian Bolding in Paris. I didn't mean to. That's true. You heard it right. That's where he is. Monty Chancellor is here as our videographer for today. On the other political front, at least if we can, there was news out of Illinois. All of our great friends at WCPT in Chicago, I'm sure, were happy to hear that Rod Blagojevich won a little battle yesterday in court. He challenged some of the charges against him, and he actually got 5 charges dropped. Now, we don't know whether that's going to mean less prison time for Blagojevich, but it could.
Yeah.
And God bless her, his loyal wife, Patty, was out there talking about, she's still defending him.
My husband's a patriotic person. He believes in the promise of our country and a promise of our legal system and our justice system. And he believes that at some point it's got to be made right.
There it is. Right. Yes, isn't it nice to have
It's nice
that
to hear
loyal-
from her again.
Nice to have that loyal person standing by.
There's a bar in Shaw in D.C., a Chicago bar, where there's an autographed picture of Blagojevich on the wall. So they'll be celebrating there this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Right. What's the bar?
The name escapes me. It's right by DACA Beer Garden in Shaw.
Oh,
so
wow, okay.
it's a little bit of a dive. It's a nice place to go, though.
Yeah,
Nice.
how about it? All right, a little touch of Chicago here. Right. So we got a lot coming up here. Ben Schreckinger here with the first half hour. Then we're going to talk about, with the Center for American Progress, the latest shocking report on the number of children in this country living in poverty. And Congressman John Yarmuth will be here in the next hour to talk about his golf game with President Obama over the weekend. Did they talk about the Iran nuclear deal? But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news in Colorado Springs, Colorado. A man by the name of Mark Rantal went to go grab lunch with a friend one Monday. He decided they would go to Chipotle, get a little lunch there, and then he ended up being close to Chipotle the next day. So he had Chipotle there on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, another friend asked him to go to lunch, so then they went to a Chipotle. So Mark Rantal said, why stop there? He decided he was going to see how many days in a row he could eat at Chipotle's before he got tired of it. He is currently on day 106.
No.
Yesterday was 106 of eating at Chipotle every single day for one meal. He says he doesn't know when he's going to stop, but he thinks it's funny and is just going to keep doing it.
I don't know.
Living the dream.
Yeah, right?
Is his name Morgan Spurlock, and is this a documentary?
Yeah. Aim high, kids. You too can eat at Chipotle every single day.
Would you like fries with your burrito bowl?
Yeah, right. Got a lot of free time on
I gotta
this
tell you, a Chipotle burrito bowl is worth going for.
Sure.
Once a month, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. Remember the name Rachel Dolezal? She was the chapter president of the NAACP.
Oh, yeah.
That turned out that she was not an African-American woman. She was actually
the white
born
black woman.
White,
Or
that's
black
right.
White woman.
That's right.
Whatever.
Well, she's not with the NAACP anymore.
No kidding.
She's trying to figure out where she goes in life, but she did give a new interview to Vanity Fair magazine. It turns out she is now working at a salon, doing weaves and braiding hair for African-American women. So she knows how to do that, I guess. It's something that she learned from when she dipped her toe into, being black. So good for her, I guess. She's found some employment.
What can I say?
Yeah, you look so happy to be talking about Rachel Dolezal again, Billy.
I was hoping I'd never hear of her again.
Yeah. A very interesting game last night in
As
Major
President
League.
Obama says, everybody deserves a second chance, right?
There you go. Almost everybody. Very interesting game last night. The Miami Marlins were playing a game. It was 0-0. Their pitcher, Nathan Carnes, was having quite a game pitching, and then he got up to the plate, and he hit a home run. It's the first time that an American League pitcher has hit a home run in the last 4 years. The score went on.
Pitchers don't hit.
Pitchers rarely hit home runs.
Pitchers don't hit, period.
Let me tell you how rare this is. So the score ended up being 1-0. He had the only run in the game. That is the first time that has happened since 1962.
Wow.
That a 1-0 game was decided by a pitcher's home run. That's how rare it happens. And coming into this game, he came in 0 for 7. He hadn't had a hit. His first major league hit as a pitcher was a winning home run. So, not a bad game there.
Not a bad night.
They got to give him 2 wins for that.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Talk about putting the team on his back.
How about it? All right. Thank you, Peter. Indeed. So, Ben, you have been on the road so much, but I want to talk to you about all the other crazies after. But let's start with the latest candidate who's into the race, Governor John Kasich from Ohio, coming in yesterday. Does he have a shot?
That's a good question. He actually he probably has a better shot than more than half the people in there.
Good point. Yeah.
But it's just going to be so difficult for him to break through, as we saw yesterday. He timed this announcement to try to move into the top 10 in the polls in time to get on that debate stage next month for Fox. But Donald Trump once again took all the air out of the room. And if you look at the social media stats, how much buzz there was about him on Facebook, he was not getting very far up there. It was in like the low 6 digits in terms of people talking about his launch yesterday.
Really? Yeah. And what does he have, to offer that he can say, this is what distinguishes me from the other 15?
So he's got a pretty similar profile to Jeb Bush. The real reason that he's in this campaign is that he and his advisors apparently believe that Jeb Bush remains vulnerable. He is very popular right now. He's in Ohio, which is arguably a slightly more important swing state even than Florida, and he seems to think he can be a better campaigner than Jeb Bush.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he says, I think that, and I'm sure it's true, that no Republican has ever won the White House without winning Ohio, right? And that I can deliver Ohio. But, I mean, he's also not he's not a classic extreme right-winger, right? He's a little bit of a maverick on some issues.
That's right. He's a pretty moderate guy. Most notably, especially in this Republican primary, is that he cooperated with implementing some parts of Obamacare. He actually
Medicaid expansion in Ohio, right?
Right. He actually got into a little bit of a war of words with a donor at a Koch conference within the last year over that. Someone challenged him on it. He said, when I have to go answer for myself at the pearly gates, I want to be able to say I help the poor. So not only will he buck the party line, but he will be outspoken about it. Whether taking down your fellow Republicans is the best strategy for a primary, we'll see.
Yeah. And we have to give him his 15 seconds of fame here as we've done for all the other candidates when they announce. At least we will play the words of their announcement. Some very, very excited. Lindsey Graham was really, remember that, how flat he was when he announced?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah.
But
he said basically, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm running for president.
Right.
We never thought he'd say it either.
Yeah, right. No. Yeah, he's not alone.
Here's John Kasich's take on it.
I am here to ask you for your prayers, for your support, for your efforts, because I have decided to run for president of the United States.
Which, of course, is why they got all those people together. It came as no surprise to them. I always think about the effort that must go into people thinking, now, how am I going to say it, right? What words am I going to use? How am I going to make that announcement?
Kasich's a shoot-from-the-hip kind of guy. I think he spoke without a prompter or without a prepared speech. So he might have just let those words come out. He often doesn't have a filter.
Right, yeah. I'll tell you who doesn't have a filter, and as you pointed out, he is sucking all the oxygen out of the room. I don't know what percentage of the media attention has been given to Donald Trump. I was looking at your page this morning. I mentioned it. Okay, here's your front page of Politico. Just reading across the headlines. Will Trump debate be the Trump show? The man behind Trump's run. That's your story. I want to find out more about it. Republican candidates get Trump. Donald Trump gives out Lindsey Graham's phone number. He's got it.
He's stealing the show, and we can't look away. And he's at the top of the polls for the Republican Party. He absolutely merits coverage. It's mind-bending for some members of his party and the Huffington Post, apparently. But he's absolutely a factor in this race, even if you think there's no way in heck that he's actually going to be the nominee. He's clearly affecting this primary.
We have given the Huffington Post a lot of grief because they're covering Trump on their entertainment page. I mean, look, he's news. He is making news, and he belongs on the news
You don't
page.
have to like it.
Right.
But you have to accept the fact that
Absolutely. So who is the man behind Trump?
His name is Corey Lewandowski. He's a guy from Lowell, Massachusetts, not too far from where I grew up in Boston. He has been in the Republican Party. He was a Reagan Republican and has basically worked in politics since the mid-'90s when he graduated from college. He's brash. He has a knack for spectacle. He knows how to make a buck. He's a lot like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I was just the candidate or the manager here?
Right. Which one are you talking about? Right.
They may be a little bit of a match made in heaven, and so far in the polls, it's working. The two of them together.
He must be having the time of his life. Yeah, I mean, right?
I can only imagine that the people who are a part of the inner circle of this campaign were not expecting to be on the ride that they've been on the last couple of months. It's a whirlwind. It just came out that they're going to be going to the Texas border possibly as soon as tomorrow. Sometime this week, they'll be touring the border in Laredo.
Lord.
So they've been all over the map, and they've been at the center of a big circus.
Get your recorders ready.
Oh yeah. Now, have you you've talked to Lewandowski?
I have spoken to Lewandowski in my life. I didn't interview him for this story.
But have you asked him whether or not they would consider running as a third-party candidate?
I have not pressed him on that. I have asked the man himself, Donald Trump, about that. He has said that it's not something he's thinking about right now. His focus is on running as a Republican. An audience member in Iowa, where we all were on Saturday, put it to him a little bit more directly, asked Donald to rule out completely the possibility of a third-party run, and he wouldn't do it. So that remains on the table.
And if anybody would have the money to run as a third-party candidate, he would, right?
If anybody in the field has the money, it's him. He says he has $10 billion. Forbes says he has $4 billion. So whether he's really prepared to spend the $1 to $2 billion, as some estimates put it, a quarter to a half of what Forbes says his fortune is. His assets aren't that liquid. So could he realistically fund a campaign to rival that of Hillary Clinton if she's the nominee? I'm skeptical, but Trump has been surprising all of us the last couple of months.
Did the John McCain comments hurt him?
There's not a strong indication yet that they have. There was one very small sample, 1/4 of polling in an NBC poll was taken on Sunday night after those comments had sunk in. That did show a significant dip in his support. But then again, that was the same poll that overall showed him surging to an 11-point lead over the second place Scott Walker. I've seen some other polling out of Iowa that shows his support unchanged before and after that polling. And I was talking to a lot of his supporters on Monday who say, I don't like John McCain anyways. So I don't think this is his Waterloo.
Got it. Ben Schreckinger here from Politico. Who knows who he's going to have to go after today. Somebody else's cell phone number? We don't know. So you want to jump in, 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. The Trump Show continues when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs, fields.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
My power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour, children in poverty coming up after the half. Ben Schreckinger here from Politico, Politico.com, of course. Follow all the political news on both sides of the aisle. And then when you were in Iowa, you took time out to see Bernie Sanders in action at a news conference in Cedar Rapids. How do you rate the Sanders phenomenon, the Bernie phenomenon?
It's fascinating to watch. This was not a Bernie Palooza event. There were not thousands of people. It was a small press conference. They had set up about 14 chairs. Not that Bernie didn't bring the same sort of energy and vigor that he does to larger venues. What I'm most fascinated to see is he started going to red states. He drew huge crowds in Texas. He's going to the deep
and
south.
In Arizona.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And he's heading to the deep south soon. And I sort of want to see Bernie on the bayou to see if he can take this message that has not resonated in red states of economic populism, his version of socialism. See if that really can resonate outside of the bastions of the Democratic Party.
Bernie will be on the bayou this weekend in Baton Rouge and in New Orleans. That's the last candidate I covered in Baton Rouge was David Duke.
Wow.
Whoa, I know, man.
This will be a party, though.
It'll be worth watching this weekend indeed. Hey, Ben, it's great having you here. I hope you come back soon again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hope to be back.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Wednesday, July 22nd, 33 minutes after the hour. It is The Bill Press Show. We are in Washington, D.C. We are with you on the radio and on television, coast to coast. And we're brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, all together. The members of the SMART Union, that's what they call themselves now, under President Joseph Sellers, giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. You bet. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, smart-union.org. Here's a chilling headline in today's USA Today. More children living in poverty in this country, of course, now Then during the Great Recession, Melissa Boteach, right? Is that
you got it
correctly? From the Center for American Progress, Vice President of Half in 10 and Poverty and Prosperity for the Center, is here in studio with us. Melissa, it's good to see you again. This is really disturbing in this country today in 2015. One out of five?
One out of five children
living in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And
it blows me away. I mean, we talk about this. We've talked about this with you before.
Yeah.
It blows me away every time we talk about it. It's crazy.
I mean, the president's going to Kenya, he's going to Ethiopia. We're not talking about deepest, dark Africa, right? And we're talking about the United States of America.
Yeah.
Right, and our poverty measure is so low that there's actually more children even in economic insecurity who are in families just struggling to get by, even if they're not officially considered in poverty.
Right, so above the poverty even is
right.
living in economic insecurity. And I saw that this has gone up 22% in the last 7 years. Why?
So I want to put some context on these numbers.
Please.
I think that it's important to note that, wages have been flat. And costs have risen. And so you are seeing families increasingly squeezed. And so this measure that this report is looking at is showing just really basically the market income of children's parents has not really risen, even though we've been in an economic recovery. And again, it's 2013, so it hasn't taken into account the falling unemployment yet from the past year. But so that's what's going on in those numbers. One thing that these numbers can hide is that despite the fact that wages have been flat, we have made some investments in things like tax credits for low-wage working families, in food stamps and other work and income supports that's really helped mitigate some of the child poverty and hardship during the Great Recession. We have a lot of work to do. It's unacceptably high, but take away those key work and income supports and it would have been a lot worse.
Yeah, it could even, as bad as it is.
Right.
It could have been worse. I should have mentioned that these numbers come from this latest report of the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Is this an annual report, or what is the context here of that?
Right. The Annie E. Casey Foundation puts out an annual report called Kids Count with state-by-state data on key indicators of child well-being, including economic insecurity, health, education, and safety, all those sort of core indicators for children's growth and development.
Mm-hmm. Nationwide, right?
Nationwide, but also broken down state by state. There are Kids Count partners in every single state that release this data.
And everybody accepts their data as being solid, legitimate?
Based on the census, based on the best sources.
Right. What are the programs that, I mean, it's just amazing to me, too, that this, first of all, that these numbers are as bad as they are, but that it's not a bigger issue, that nobody's really talking about it. I mean, I don't know. We have 5 Democrats and 16 Republicans running for president. I haven't heard anybody talk about poverty, or certainly not about kids in poverty. I haven't heard any member of Congress talk about it.
I know. Well, we need to put it back on the top of the agenda because this is not just a moral issue. This is also an economic competitive issue. These kids are going to be the workers tomorrow. And if you don't invest in them now, you're going to have lower workforce productivity, worse educational outcomes, worse health outcomes. The scarring that has taken place of many of these children during the Great Recession is something our country is going to see the results of for years to come if we don't make a turn now. And so I think this has to be a core political issue for 2016 on both the Democratic and the Republican side.
One would hope, right?
Yeah, I think the one Republican that has really been out in front on this is the guy that got in the race yesterday, John Kasich, when he talked about how, we've quoted this several times, when he gets to the pearly gates, he wants to be able to tell St. Peter he did everything he could to help fight poverty. And you don't hear that message a lot. At all from either side, frankly. But what's the holdup, I guess? What's the drawback in saying you want to fight poverty in this country and actually acknowledging that it's a real problem?
I mean, I think that there's, everything from racial dog whistling to, sort of feeling like a split between poverty and the working class, when in reality, this is a core issue when you talk about the middle class. This is a core issue when you talk about income inequality. Because if wages are flat for everybody and costs are rising and the middle class is getting squeezed, where do you think they're getting squeezed to? It's getting squeezed into poverty. And so this issue, I think, is growing in the national consciousness. I do think it is important that as we we go into 2016 that we're careful to distinguish between people whose rhetoric on poverty is good versus the reality of the policies. Because when you actually critique a lot, you'll sometimes hear conservatives talk a lot about poverty. And, John Kasich has expanded Medicaid, so that is, a good thing that he's done. But a lot of the reality is you say you're for cutting poverty, but you're against raising the minimum wage. You're against paid sick days for working parents. You're against, or you're for cuts to core work and income supports for low wage working families. So I think it's important that we get people talking about poverty, but even more important than that, I think voters need to look at candidates' records on issues for working class families.
Well, certainly, Peter, I think the quick answer to your question, and maybe the cynical answer to your question, why the politicians don't talk more about it is because they just assume that poor people don't vote. Their votes, and therefore, they don't have to reach out to that constituency. But the one person who has been talking about it and will be coming to Washington to speak to the United States Congress, and I bet that will be part of his message, is Pope Francis.
Oh, yes. That will be a big moment. This has been part of what he's been speaking about, since he's been since he's been Pope, but before that even. It's a core part of the Catholic social teaching to cut poverty. And frankly, all religious teachings have it as a core tenet to cut poverty. And so I think his being in Washington, D.C., addressing Congress at a time when they are considering spending bills that would be slashing everything from, affordable housing to, nutrition to community development funds, and at the same time as Congress is going to be considering tax bills that, make sure the wealthy and corporations are taken care of, but are screwing low-income and low-wage working families. I think that's a powerful contrast.
Yeah. I mean, he has said it before, and I'm sure he'll say it here, too, that we have a moral imperative. Our focus ought to be not just helping the people who are at the top 1%, if you will, but helping the poor and the middle class. That message Pope Francis will deliver on September 24. Melissa Boteach here with us from the Center for American Progress, talking about this shocking report out of the Annie E. Casey Foundation that more children today living in poverty than during the Great Recession. What can we do about it? What are we doing about it? Your questions, your comments, your stories. Coming up at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. Why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. Why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson, President, Treasurer, and Sergeant-at-Arms of the Bill Press Fan Club. Wait a second, I know you're thinking. You and Bill Press have nothing in common politically. In fact, isn't he kind of insane? All true, but I love him like a brother anyway, and that's what a great guy he is. Congratulations, Bill. You're the best.
There he is, my brother from another mother, Tucker Carlson, a good friend from the old Crossfire and Spin Room days at CNN. Thank you, Tucker. 10th anniversary indeed, and glad to be here with all of you again today, here Wednesday, July 22nd. At 15 minutes before the top of the hour, Justin Singh covers the White House for Bloomberg News. Will be here in studio with us at the top of the hour, and then we'll be talking to Congressman John Yarmuth from Kentucky about many issues, most notably his golf game with President Obama. On Sunday, we want to find out how many mulligans the president takes.
You know what the answer is? As many as he wants.
Compared to Bill Clinton. It's funny. You always heard about the mulligans with Bill Clinton. You don't hear about them with Barack Obama.
No, you don't.
Which doesn't mean they don't exist. We're dealing with a much more serious topic here with Melissa Boteach from the Center for American Progress, talking about a report that came out from the Annie E. Casey Foundation yesterday showing that more children live in poverty today in the United States than during the Great Recession. I guess that's because there are more people in the United States now, right? But it's also the percentage of children, isn't it?
Right, the share of children also. This is actually I think one of the big takeaways from this report is a policy story. It's that public policy matters for children, because you look at some of the indicators that did well for kids: health, early education, high school completion. There's been a big expansion of public insurance for low-income children. That's one of the reasons why there's more children who have health insurance now. It's not because all of a sudden, the private market was picking them up. Mm-hmm. You look at pre-K, it's because more states have expanded their pre-K programs. That's why those educational outcomes are improving. And then you look at the income measures, and the lack of raising the minimum wage, the lack of bolstering basic labor standards affects children's parents. And that's one of the reasons why their market incomes have fallen or are flat.
What are the main programs today in that the federal government has to help families in poverty? I mean, we've talked food stamps often with Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. That's one of the programs.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest programs, CHIP, Children's Health Insurance Program, and Medicaid are two of the most important bedrock programs for children to make sure that they have health insurance. The Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit are vital work supports for low-income families. These are credits that support low-wage working families. And so you work a minimum wage job, you have 2 kids. At the end of the year, you're going to get a nice tax refund that's going to help you pay down basic expenses, maybe put a little money away for the future, and avoid massive debt. So those are very important programs for low-wage working families with kids.
And food stamps, minimum wage, of course.
The basic wage floor is one of the most important things that we can do. It's currently $7.25 an hour. It's been stuck there for 6 years. In the meantime, the cost of everything's gone up.
And all of these programs are threatened, right? By cuts out of this Republican-controlled House.
Right. I mean, basically, if by 2017, if Congress fails to act, you're going to see a minimum wage worker with 2 kids lose up to $1,500 in her tax credits if Congress fails to act. In the appropriations bills, you're seeing threats to everything from affordable housing to community development to job training funds. So this is not sort of some theoretical conversation about a spending line. Budgets are moral documents. They're economic documents, and these are real people's lives.
And when we're talking, just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about, the poverty level, right? The definition of poverty: family of 4, $23,624.
Right.
I mean, there's no way any family, any individual, as far as hard for me to imagine, can have any kind of a comforting quality life at that level.
It's not a comfortable standard of living.
No.
We did a poll.
And be able to just pay for the most basic needs at that level.
We did a poll for the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty last year, and we found that the vast majority of Americans actually thought the poverty line was much higher than that. Sure. And when you asked them what it actually took to make ends meet, it was significantly higher than even that. So let's look at twice the poverty line. Let's look at around $46,000, $47,000 a year for a family of four, which is what most people think is about what it takes to make ends meet at a very modest level.
Even then, tough.
Even then, it's tough if you have four people in that family. You have nearly half of all kids beneath that line. So if the poverty line is an important metric, but it's a deprivation metric. If you're actually talking about achieving a modicum of economic security and stability for you and your kids, there are far more children who are struggling in those households to make ends meet.
So those who fall under the official definition of poverty are just kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? That's just part of the problem.
Right. And then you drill down deeper and you look, okay, beneath the poverty line, not all these families are making $23,000 a year.
Right.
1 in 5 kids, but 1 in 10 kids. So half of those kids have families with incomes below half that.
Ooh. Below,
less than, around $11,500 a year. So about 1 in 10 children are living in households in deep poverty. And the scarring of that in terms of their long-term outcomes can be very, it's a very important conversation to have. We don't want to just talk about poverty. We want to talk about what's going on in the depth of poverty beneath that line and also the children who are hovering just above it.
Where are there certain pockets of poverty in this country? I mean, what are we talking about? Red states? Are we talking about, the Mississippi Delta? Are we talking about West Virginia? I don't know.
Well, poverty is everywhere, but I mean, it's more concentrated in certain places than others. And this is one of the key takeaways of Annie E. Casey's Kids Count report, is if you look at clusters of states and regions, the South and Southwest are not doing so hot. Mississippi continues to be ranked at the very bottom. Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all these states where Texas saw over half the child population growth between 2000 and 2010. So it's not just small states, large states. And then you look at a state like Minnesota, or you look at the Midwest and New England, where states are doing a better job at investing in their kids and making policy decisions that are fostering their long-term growth and development. Those states consistently rank near the top of the rankings. So policy does matter at the federal level, at the state level.
I'll have to check this report. Does the report break down which states were the most?
Yep, it has a ranking of all 50 states on all the different indicators and overall. And if you look at the South, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Arkansas, and the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, those states are consistently ranking at the bottom. And it's disheartening because a lot of the child population growth is happening in those states.
How about the what is it called in the schools? It's a children's lunch program. Mm-hmm. That's an important part of this too.
Yeah, school breakfast and school lunch,
right? Yeah.
And also the WIC program for pregnant moms and babies 0 to 5. There's a suite of child nutrition programs that are actually Congress is looking at reviewing and renewing this year. And so that's another set of important work supports for kids.
Well, I think we'll just have to start pushing the candidates on this and make sure that it does become part of the dialogue in 2016 and should be on the Republican side and the Democratic side. I mean, this is something that we as Americans just should not accept and say, oh, isn't that too bad? No, we should be concerned about it and outraged about it and shamed about it and do something about it.
It's absolutely shameful. Yep.
You are doing a good job keeping this in the public eye at the Center for American Progress, Melissa. Thank you for coming in and bring us up to date, too.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right back and tell you what the president's on to today, his schedule. He's back at the White House.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, 2 hours never enough. We have to need a third hour to get everything done today. Justin Sink used to cover the White House for The Hill, now does so for Bloomberg. Will be here in studio with us, and we'll be talking to Congressman John Yarmuth from Kentucky, one of the 3 lucky congressmen who played golf with President Obama last weekend. And the question is, Did they ever discuss Iran during the 18 holes of golf? Stay tuned and find out. Hour number 3.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Brought to you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama, fresh from his 7th appearance with Jon Stewart on The Daily Show last night, his 3rd as President of the United States. Back at the White House today, he gets the daily briefing at 10 o'clock this morning. Vice President's on the road somewhere, I'm not sure exactly where. Then the President meets with small business owners this afternoon to talk about the Export-Import Bank, which is still threatened because Republicans in Congress don't want to extend it. This evening, he delivers remarks at a reception celebrating the signing into law of the African Growth and Opportunity Act in the East Room. That's sort of a prelude to his trip to Kenya and Ethiopia, which he will leave on tomorrow evening. We have our daily briefing with Josh Earnest at 1 o'clock. Justin Sink covers the White House for Bloomberg News. He will join us in studio at the top of the next hour. And then a little bit later, we'll talk to Congressman John Yarmuth from Kentucky. Right back with hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe
that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have it as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, the Bill Press Show, almost as much fun as the Trump Show, but, nobody can keep up with that guy. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Wednesday, July 22nd. Here on the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, our studio right here on Capitol Hill. We are here with you everywhere in this great land of ours, wherever you happen to be. We're there with you on your local radio station. We're there with you on Free Speech TV worldwide, joining you on our video stream, Talker TV, TAWKR TV. Hello, hello, hello. So good to see you today. And thank you for joining us. Thanks for being part of the program. Don't forget, we want to hear from you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. We have our regular White House briefing today at 1 o'clock with Press Secretary Josh Earnest, but we wanted to get a head start on it this morning, so we've invited Justin Sink here to join us in studio, who covers the White House for Bloomberg News, formerly with The Hill. Hello, Justin. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you were on the road yesterday with the president up in New York City, huh?
Yeah, we did a swing through Pittsburgh first for his comments at the VFW,
right,
and then headed over to New York for the second time in under a week and did the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, last appearance for
You're
the president.
getting a lot of Air Force One time.
I am. I wish I got some frequent flyer miles on that thing so that I could then book my own tickets and go where I wanted to go, but no such luck.
No, you just get the M&Ms.
Yes, the M&Ms are not bad. The food, not bad. The seats, not. It's not an awful way to get around the country for sure.
Indeed. The rest of the team here joining us, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, and there he is. Yeah, Jamie Benson. Ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Monty Kensler filling in for Cyprian today as our videographer. We had, while you were on the road, we had another candidate for the Republican nomination, as if 15 candidates weren't enough. Now number 16 coming in yesterday. The governor of Ohio, John Kasich, getting a group together at Ohio State, his alma mater. Here's why I'm here, he says.
I am here to ask you for your prayers, for your support, for your efforts, because I have decided to run for President of the United States.
All right, there he goes. And his biggest challenge now, Justin, will just be getting into that first debate, which is in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of, I think, shocking to see the sitting governor of a state, and especially a kind of crucial electoral state like Ohio, not be able to get into his party's presidential debate in his own contest. But you mentioned Donald Trump, and he is really causing problems for these sort of second-tier Republican candidates who were hoping that these early weeks and months would be about Jeb Bush maybe making a slip being able to position themselves as a sort of viable alternative. But Trump has kind of sucked so much media attention out of every part of the primary that I think it's really become difficult for some of those second-tier candidates that don't have a broad base of support or don't have national name recognition to move forward and to sort of press their case.
If John Kasich is smart, and he's not dumb, what he should be doing today, what Lindsey Graham did yesterday, is attack Donald Trump and get Donald Trump to attack you back, and then people will be talking about it.
Yeah, that's right. And the downside is your phone number may be blasted out to all of America. So.
Right. Justin Sink here with us for the first half hour. Congressman John Yarmuth from Kentucky at the half hour. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bad news for Apple yesterday as they unveiled their fourth quarter revenue forecast, and it was not very good. They talked about how they've missed their sales on both iPhones and the iWatch, how they're lower than expected, which means that their shares slumped nearly 7% in after-hours trading yesterday. Yeah, so they obviously this is not the end of the world for one of the world's biggest companies. Right. So I'm sure they'll figure out a way to turn this around. But it was a little scary moment for them.
I was reading about that. The favorite stat that I read is that they have $202 billion in cash on hand, which is more than the entire economy of New Zealand.
Wow!
They've just got a massive amount of cash sitting around. So
that's almost as much as Donald Trump has. According to him. Right. We go to Inverness, Florida, where a man runs a store called the Florida Gun Supply Store. The man that runs it is Andy Hallenman, and he put out a YouTube video yesterday that says that he is turning his store into a, quote, Muslim-free zone, end quote. If you want to come in and you want to buy guns from him, you can't be Muslim, according to him. He's going to keep Muslims out of his store. He's already facing some pushback from the community there, and the Council on American Islamic Relations says that this policy violates federal law. So it's going to be.
Of course, it violates.
We haven't heard. Yeah, of course, we haven't heard the end of this story. That's for sure.
I'm shocked to hear that happened in Florida.
In Florida, of all places,
right?
You know,
for that center of learning and acceptance.
It's very surprising.
And in San Francisco, Bill, it turns out the giant star Barry Bonds has officially been cleared of all criminal charges that connected him to using steroids. They've been after this for quite some time. And the U.S. Justice Department said yesterday they are not going to challenge a federal appeals court ruling that said that overturned his 2011 conviction for obstruction of justice. They're just walking away from it. It's over. It's done with. He's a free man. His court cases are done with. So there you go.
And could he possibly come back?
He ain't coming back. No, he's too old.
Okay.
He won't come back. He's old. But, there's always going to be this issue of him and his steroid use and the asterisk and whether or not he gets into the Hall of Fame and all that stuff. But for now, from a criminal standpoint, he's done. No more. Nothing else to worry about.
Good for him. He fought it and he won. There you go. Thank you, Peter. Busy days for President Obama before he leaves on his trip for Africa tomorrow evening. So, Justin, you were with the president on a little jaunt yesterday, as you pointed out to Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh and then New York.
For the VFW. How was he received, not being a veteran and being a Democrat? How was he received by the veterans of foreign wars?
Well, it was definitely in an interesting environment. I mean, obviously, the VFW is, I think, an elderly crowd, so I think it was not quite, a college campus rally where we see the president kind of receiving tons of cheers and applause like you and I have both seen before. But I would say that mostly throughout the speech it was respectful. I think he hit a lot of points, especially on military spending that I think, and trying to reform the VA that played well with the crowd. Mm-hmm. There was one guy who was yelling about Benghazi the entire time, but with the exception of him, I think the crowd was very sort of respectful and heard the president out. So it was certainly a different sort of mood than I think we're used to in a lot of his speeches. But what was interesting to me was the president bringing sort of his sales pitch for the Iran deal to the VFW. And then later on the Daily Show, two very different audiences, but sort of understates the extent to which the White House is trying to go out and really sell the American public on this deal.
At every venue, at every forum. And maybe the highlight of the president's appearance with Jon Stewart last night was his announcement about signing a new executive order.
I can't believe that you're leaving before me. In fact, I'm issuing a new executive order that Jon Stewart cannot leave the show.
At least not until he's out of office, right? What's it like moving around New York City with the President of the United States?
It's pretty wild. I have never gotten up and down Manhattan faster.
And
so you helicopter
in from
and
JFK,
right,
Yeah.
and you land down in the Wall Street heliport, and then you're off like a rocket up, the FDR, and you can get up and down town in 10 or 15 minutes and see a lot of angry people who have been blocked off by police and barricades and that sort of thing. And so it's definitely a wild way to take in New York City. But unfortunately, you miss a lot of the fun of New York City, which is walking around on the street and being on the subway and seeing all the crazy people and enjoying
Did you make any news on Stewart last night?
It was a weirdly sort of philosophical conversation.
I thought so too.
It was really kind of ponderous, and I think both of them are probably thinking about their legacy and nearing the ends of their sort of the main career or the thing that they'll always be known for. And so there was not a lot of news, even though there were ripe targets like Donald Trump and the 2016 election that were out there, they went hardly mentioned. And instead, it was just more of a philosophical conversation. I think Jon Stewart asked him kind of repeatedly if he was frustrated with the media, if he was frustrated with his accomplishments had been characterized, but also if he would concede the fact that he had fallen short in certain areas, including the VA, reforming the VA. And it was kind of a tug and tussle on whether the president would, I think, concede that this had become an issue or a problem that hadn't been solved during his presidency. But the argument that Obama made was that his goal is just to move the ball forward, and that if you are meeting all of your goals, you're not setting them high enough. And so it was interesting to hear him talk kind of philosophically about his legacy and what he had accomplished.
Right, and as you point out, a lot of it about Iran and the fact that his critics didn't have a serious alternative, and which is a point that he stressed over and over again at our news conference last week. Yeah,
I think a couple times yesterday he made the argument that, even if Dick Cheney had come in and negotiated this, even if the sort of Republican ideal had come in to negotiate this deal, that it wasn't realistic to say that Iran would have completely abandoned its nuclear program. It was just something not on the table, and it's not necessarily realistic to say that the sanctions regime could have continued because China and Russia had not really shown a willingness to continue on. And so the real question, though, is whether he can convince a big swath of the population. We saw polls that came out yesterday that more than half of the people who knew about the deal did not support it, and that's going to be a real tough sales effort for the White House as it's trying to shore up the Democrats it needs to sustain a veto.
Well, the president's going to leave all this behind tomorrow evening and head off to Africa. Where and why?
Well, he's going to Kenya.
By the way, are you going on this trip?
I am not going on this trip. So somehow I get, the repeated jaunts up to New York, which no complaints. But I think Kenya would have been a little more interesting, a little more fun. But Margaret Tolive, our newly elected president of the White House Correspondent Association.
President to be.
Yes, exactly. She'll take over in 2017, or I think. Is going to take the trip for Bloomberg.
She does a lot of the foreign travel.
Yeah, she and
seniority, Justin. You
I know.
Right?
I should have sabotaged her campaign or something.
Yeah, right. What are you thinking?
Now I'm regretting. Now I'm regretting having lobbied everybody for just get her off the beat. Maybe I can get Kenya. No, but she's going to do a great job out there, and it's going to be a really fascinating trip. Obviously, this is the president's father's ancestral birthplace, and he's got family there. The extent of the interaction between the family is not yet really known, but it's going to be really interesting. The president himself has been kind of down on the trip. He was asked about it in the news conference last week and said, well, it's important symbolically, but it's not as interesting as it would be if I could go there not as president and wander around and go visit villages and go do everything that he'd like to do. Instead, this is going to be a conference of African states, and they'll probably be mostly constrained to a hotel room and a conference center and that sort of thing. So,
is he going to go to his father's native village? And
right now, there are not plans to do that. Even though, I think his aunt has offered to make his favorite Kenyan meal and stuff like that. Maybe it's his grandmother. Yeah.
What is his favorite Kenyan meal?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's probably delicious. I don't know.
Is he going to go to visit the hospital where he was born?
I'll let you and Donald.
Yeah.
I was going to say the Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Story. That's what we got to ask, right?
It is going to be insufferable to hear all that happening right while he's in Africa. It's going to be the floodgates are going to open.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But there's a conference in Kenya that he's going to, I guess, and another one in Ethiopia, right? So there's some official business things. It's not a long trip. I mean,
it's not a long trip, and
gets back here Tuesday.
And I think one of the reasons that it's not a long trip, one of the reasons that he's not going to be traveling around a lot, and one of the reasons that he thought it was important to be at this conference is the threat of terrorism that's been growing within Africa. There have been some brutal attacks, even in Kenya, in the last few weeks. And the U.S. is really trying to find ways to empower African countries, which are lots of which are kind of struggling across the board with what's becoming a more and more dramatic security threat for them. And so I think we're going to hear a lot about that. We're going to hear a lot about how North Africa and the Middle East can confront the threat posed by ISIS and other extremist groups. But the counter side of that is I think it does restrain some of the more fun or unique kind of cultural activity. Yeah.
Justin Sink here on What's New on the White House Beat with President Obama. We continue when we come back here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll need into a dump.
Perfect. It's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, Congressman John Yarmuth coming up next, right after the half hour. Justin Sink here with us from Bloomberg News, White House, covering the White House for Bloomberg. So we're going to find out, Justin, whether or not Congressman Yarmuth and the other members of the president's golfing team on Sunday, in fact, did talk about Iran.
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear the details of... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we figure this will be either the last time he ever plays golf with Obama or the last time he ever comes on our show.
One way or the other.
By the time we're finished.
All right, well, my self-interest is not his golf games in the future, and more finding out what they were chatting about on the links, because it was the first time in years that the president has taken members of Congress out to play golf with them.
As I pointed out at one of the White House briefings, and Josh Earnest said I was wrong, that this was nothing, had nothing to do with the Iran strategy. This was just
okay, sure. Okay, Josh, whatever you say.
Not a person in the room believed when he said that. Well, Justin, always good to have you in studio. We'll see you a little bit later, 1 o'clock at the White House.
Great, thank you so much for having me.
Man. Back with Congressman John Yarmuth.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour. Here we go. Wednesday, July 22nd, The Bill Press Show. Live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, those great men and women who keep the United States government running day in and day out under President J. David Cox. Proud to work for America every day. We salute them for their good work and thank them for the sponsorship of the program and encourage you to find out more about the AFGE at their website, afge.org. It being the 22nd of July, not much time left before Congress leaves for its August recess with a lot on their plate. The Highway Trust Bill, criminal justice reform, and eventual vote on the Iran nuclear deal. All of those keeping the members of Congress quite busy, but our good friend, Congressman John Yarmuth from Kentucky, takes time to join us on our news line this morning. Hello, Congressman. Good to say hello.
Good morning, Bill.
So I want to start with the most important issue of all. How was your golf game Sunday?
It was one of the best experiences on the golf course I've ever had. I played with President Obama and along with Ed Perlmutter of Colorado and Joe Courtney of Connecticut. And it's there are not many people who can get to say that they spent 4.5 hours with the most powerful man on the planet. But It was a normal Sunday group, except for the Secret Service in the woods and so forth. But,
Yeah.
And the fact that, whenever we went to the putting green, somebody sneaked around and put new fresh bottles of water in our carts. But seriously, he was a joy to play with. He was very into the game. I think we all really enjoyed ourselves, and it was a pretty competitive contest.
Oh, good. Well, it's interesting that the three members of Congress he played with are all good friends of our program, which we were very proud of. Sort of like he was playing with the Bill Press team there on Sunday. Now, we know, Congressman, that you play a mean round of golf. How's the president's game?
It's actually pretty impressive for someone who's a relatively new player. He drives the ball really well. He has very nice touch on the greens.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't really give him advice, I would have if he had asked. But the only thing I would say he needs to do to be a really maybe a single-digit handicapper is he has to swing harder at it.
Huh.
He swings very easy, and which is fine on the drives because it's on a tee. But when he hits his iron shots look more like long pitch shots. And in order we played at Andrews Air Force Base, and there you can pretty much roll the ball on every green. But there are a lot of courses where you actually have to hit it up in the air, and that's what he doesn't do because he's very hard at it. He's got he loves the game, and a lot more. He shot 86, which is, a pretty good score.
He shot an 86?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
That's all legit.
Come on now. That's gonna.
My next question was going to be how many mulligans?
No, he played it straight up. Again, we had a very honest game, and it wasn't like we were conceding him 6-foot putts.
Yeah.
When he had it 4 or 5 inches away, we'd concede him. But
yeah. Who won?
Well, it actually the way it was played. I played with. Ed Perlmutter and I were partners, and Joe Courtney and the president were partners. They actually won the entire match, but we won money. We were way down early.
Sounds like my.
Well, we were getting killed, and then we just started pressing on the backside. For those who don't know, a press is a new bet starting at any point in the round.
Mm-hmm.
So in the back nine, we had several presses, and then we won the last 3 holes. So we ended up winning $3.
Oh, man, you got $3 out of the President of the United States.
That's pretty good.
And here's what's even better about it. Joe paid Ed, and so the President owed me the $3. And after the round, standing around and so forth, so he went off to greet them, which he should have done.
Mm-hmm.
And, I obviously wasn't going to say, hey, Mr. President, where's my $3? So, but yesterday I got a note plus the $3 from the President saying I always pay my golfing debts. And so that's something. The problem is it's going to cost me a lot more than $3 because I got to frame it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, right. Well, I just got to say that Joe Courtney must have played a hell of a game there.
Joe, I played with Joe a lot.
Yeah.
And Joe played extraordinarily well. Yes, he did. He was really on game. Me in terms of my life on the golf.
The final question about this golf here, and raised this issue at the briefing with journalists. The subject of Iran come up in that 4.5.
Not at all. And it's interesting because we didn't talk shop at all during the round.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it was pretty much golf. I was 4 hours. About a variety of things. Some political, but not mostly about. He wanted to know about what my son was doing. A lot about golf courses and anyway. But at the end of the round, the president said to us around, I want you all to admit now that I never lobbied you about anything today. Not Iran or anything else. He said, but I will be calling.
Right. You got. Well, that's fair, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, again, I think he looks at that a round of golf as a way to separate himself, and it's remarkable how he did it.
How long was this game? How long had you been planning for this? I mean, it's hard to get together with the President of the United States. Was this in the
Well,
planning for a long time?
In general, from literally the first time I spoke to the President after his election, and so it's probably been 25 times. Every time I've been with him, he has said, we need to play golf. We need to get that round together. So this is really 6.5 years in the making. But this particular round with Ed and Joe is probably 2 years in the making.
Whoa. Yeah, right. Now, when this vote comes up, you talk to your fellow Democrats. How is he going to get the votes in the House and the Senate for this Iran
I
deal?
am pretty confident that he's going to have enough votes to sustain his veto, to sustain the veto, if that's what they do, if that's what the Republicans choose to do. My guess is they'll end up not doing that. They will end up putting forward a resolution of approval, which will be defeated, and that will just be the end of it. So Congress will be on record as disapproving of the deal without having to go through a veto and an override. Now, I think that's a cheap way out for them, but I suspect that's what they're going to do, because I don't think they believe, and I don't believe that they can override a veto. Most Democrats, I mean, there are probably a couple dozen who are going to vote against this deal for sure, but I think virtually everybody else, after they look at it and consider the fact that there really is no viable alternative, that they will support the president.
Is that your position? Have you had a chance to, from what you've had, to the extent that you've had a chance to review it, you'll support it?
Absolutely. I've been briefed probably 6 or 8 times over the last 6 or 8 months about this deal, so I was pretty much aware of which direction it was going. I've read the main document. I have not read all the annexes, but I've read the main document. And I will say 2 things. One is this is an unprecedented inspection regime that's proposed in this deal. Nobody's ever had an inspection regime like this. Secondly, under this deal, Iran is never allowed to have a nuclear weapon, ever. This 1 year and 8 year and 10 years and 5 years, and that's confusing, but all of that relates to their civilian peaceful program. None of it relates to weaponry. They are never allowed to have a nuclear weapon under this deal, and there is, again, an unprecedented inspection regime in place in perpetuity to guarantee that they don't.
And most people don't realize that. The president has stressed that, of course. And then, the other thing, and the president's talked about, and you just alluded to it earlier, if not this deal, what's the alternative, right?
That's right. And right now, the fact is there is no alternative. Right now, the fact is there is a deal on the table, and the alternative is no deal, and that's the worst deal, if there's no deal. Because then we're at status quo. Then we have no inspection. We have nobody inside Iran, and we don't know what in the world they're doing and have no control over what they're doing. And there's no way for us to reimpose the sanction regime that brought them to the table for this deal.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's opposition will have an impact on some Democrats in the House, for sure? I
think it will. AIPAC's vowed to spend $20 million or so to lobby against this deal. But, I would suggest that everyone really carefully analyze the arguments that are being raised against it, because they fall apart in every case. Michael Oren had one yesterday he published, former Israeli ambassador, and you read through it and said, this is nothing but theoretical gibberish. I mean, it's kind of like when he says, the Iranians could put some offshore nuclear device and disrupt all of our banking system. I mean, where does that come from?
Yeah.
It's just, it's basically the Dick Cheney playbook again. That's what they're running. Scare everybody with all sorts of theoretical, hypothetical situations, none of which make any sense. And again, Michael Oren proposed no alternative except go back to the negotiating table.
Right.
Well, that's not an alternative.
And neither is Netanyahu. And I thought the president at our news conference last week said it best. He said, I understand why Israelis are concerned about Iran's position in the Middle East, but let's put it this way. He said, it'll be a hell of a lot worse if they had a nuclear weapon.
There's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah, right. So, Congressman, good to have you with us this morning. Thanks so much for taking time, and congratulations. A good show. All right.
Thank you, Bill.
We're proud of you. We'll see you back in the studio soon.
Okay, look forward to it.
Congressman John Yarmuth from Kentucky. What about that? No mulligans on the part of the president.
That's pretty good. That's impressive. At 86, I'd take it. I'd take an 86 any day.
If I played ever at 86,
yo,
whoa,
that's pretty good.
I would frame that ball. Yeah.
I love that he got $3 out of the president.
Oh yeah, I love that. And the president pays his debts.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour. I got to tell you, man, I know a lot of people who have played golf with presidents of the United States. Well, at least in Bill Clinton's time. In fact, I think I've told that story. I used to, when I was chair of the California Democratic Party, I used to round up golf partners for President Clinton when he would come to California. I mean, not every time, but I did it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And once we had a friend in Washington here from California. He happened to be in Washington, and he was going to play golf with the president. he and his wife came to our house for breakfast in the morning, and I drove him to the White House with his clubs and dropped him off to play golf with President Clinton.
Okay.
You know, so I've been around, and I have never, ever heard anybody tell what the president's golf score was. I am floored by John Yarmuth's interview. They never do. I remember one time Gray Davis, governor of California, played with Bill Clinton, President Clinton. And afterwards I said to Gray, who won? And Gray's answer was, and Gray is a scratch golfer. Mm-hmm. And Gray's answer was, the president always wins. No. And I asked him, well, what did he shoot? They wouldn't tell. He wouldn't tell him. I've never, never. And John Yarmuth,
he shot an 86.
Shot an 86.
I thought it was interesting.
That's a good game of golf.
That's a hell of a game of golf.
I don't care who you are.
That's a hell of a game of golf.
Yeah.
I also found it interesting that he was getting. I like how Yarmuth isn't the guy who will immediately start giving you advice on the golf course.
Oh yeah, but
he said if he had asked him, he'd have said swing a little harder.
Yeah,
swing a little harder.
Right. I mean, no, he was so revealing about everything of that game. So the president's got a good game of golf, and he pays his debts.
Yeah,
there it is.
I love it.
$3, man. I've lost a lot more money than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Man.
All right. Well, we can't wind up without the other news of the day. Of course, is the Trump show continues, and the latest. Lindsey Graham yesterday, he did a very smart thing. Actually, he says, nobody's paying any attention to me. I'm just that senator from South Carolina, so I'll attack Donald Trump, and then I'll get some attention. Well, that worked. It worked for Lindsey Graham. He attacked Donald Trump, called him a jackass, and Donald Trump fires back.
But today I got called a jackass by this guy. And then I said to myself, hey, didn't this guy call me like 4 years ago? Yes. He called me 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Lindsey Graham. I didn't even know who he was. He goes, Mr. Trump, this is Senator Lindsey Graham. I wonder if it would be possible for you to call Fox. He's like begging me to help him with Fox and Friends. So I say, okay, and I'll mention your name. He said, could you mention my name? I said, yes, I'll mention. And he gave me his number, and I found the card.
He found the card, and he holds up the card. He's got the memo with him. And what's on the card?
He gave me his number, and I found the card. I wrote the number down. I don't know if it's the right number. Let's try it. 202.
They're laughing.
He gives the whole number.
He gives the whole number. And, of course, everybody called the number. All the reporters in Washington called the number. Politico, I think, was the first to call the number. And Lindsey Graham answered the phone. It was his private cell phone number. And, of course, the rest, then. And there they are. So just shows it was a brilliant thing actually a smart thing for Lindsey Graham to do and a brilliant thing for Donald Trump to do. And by the way, the latest polls are out. And the big question about would Donald Trump's comments about John McCain destroy him and mean that all of his running number one in the polls, that he would just plummet, he would fall, he would collapse after he dared criticize John McCain? No. No. The latest poll taken after the John McCain remarks, he is still
riding high.
One. Yes. Donald Trump is the face and the front runner of the Republican Party today. How do you like that? I'll be back with a parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, have you heard? When it comes to running for president in 2016, there's no Republican primary anymore. They've canceled it. Well, actually, they've just changed the name. Changed the name to the Donald Trump Show. Well, they might as well, because he's the GOP front runner. He's the only one getting any media attention. And the only way any of the 15 others are getting any attention at all is when they attack him, at which point he simply attacks them back. Just ask Lindsey Graham. But if Republicans think they have a nightmare now with Donald Trump in the primary, they ain't seen nothing yet. If and when he gets knocked out of the primary, Trump's already talking about running as an independent. Yep, and in the latest Washington Post poll, in a three-way race, Trump would get 20% of the vote compared to 46% for Hillary and only 30% for Jeb Bush. As an independent, in other words, Donald Trump would destroy any chances of a Republican winning the White House, just like Ross Perot did against George H.W. Bush. But you know, the only way to stop Donald Trump would be lack of funds. And one thing you can be sure of, Donald Trump is not going to run out of money. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Wednesday, it's all yours now. Have a good one. Have a great one. Come back and see us again tomorrow morning. Because
this is the Bill Press Show.